Part 1 expanded approximately 700 words. The storm had been circling the northern ridge since before sundown, crawling in slow, menacing spirals that made the cattle restless and the land feel wrong. Wade Laramie had lived all his 40 years on this ranch, and he knew storms, dry storms, flash storms, storms that rolled in with hot winds like a blacksmith's breath. But this one wasn't like any he'd seen. It clung to the sky like something alive, stalking rather than sweeping through. By the time Wade rode back to the homestead, his coat was soaked through and his hat sagged like wet cardboard. Thunder cracked behind him, so close it felt like the sky was splitting in half. His horse, Dusty, stamped anxiously, nearly slipping in the mud as they reached the stable. "Easy, boy," Wade muttered, stroking Dusty's neck. "Ain't no storm strong enough to blow this ranch down, not tonight." Dusty didn't look convinced, but he calmed enough for Wade to guide him into the stall. Wade shut the gate, gave the horse a final pat, and trudged toward the porch. Rain slapped the ground like handfuls of gravel, and every gust of wind carried a low moan that didn't sound like wind at all. He shook it off. Storms mess with your head. Everyone knew that, but the second his boots hit the porch, he stopped dead. A crate sat in front of his door. Not a package-sized box, but something long and narrow, like a coffin someone had forgotten to bury. Its wooden slats were rough, gray with age, and bound by iron bands eaten with rust. Strange symbols were carved along the top, not like any language Wade recognized. They curled and twisted in patterns that made his eyes ache just looking at them. "What in the unholy?" he breathed. He scanned the yard automatically. No headlights, no tire tracks through the muddy drive, no footprints, not even his own were staying visible in this kind of downpour. But someone had come. Someone had carried or dragged this heavy thing right to his doorstep and left without so much as a knock. A cold beat of unease slid down his spine. He stepped closer, boots splashing. That was when he saw the note, the smallest, simplest thing in the whole scene, and somehow the most unsettling. A yellowed scrap of paper was pinned to the crate, held in place by a nail so old it looked one good tug away from turning to dust. He plucked it free. Rain blurred the ink slightly, but the 4 words remained sharp, almost carved into the page. "Open it carefully." Wade stared at the message, his mind grinding over possibilities. A prank. No one drove out this far in a storm. A delivery. No label, no stamp, no name, not even his. Something from the government. Hell, they'd at least knock before dropping a creepy box on a man's porch. Lightning flashed, lighting the yard in stark blue-white. The crate's carvings shimmered like wet ink. Wade swallowed hard. Great. This ain't creepy at all. He nudged the crate with his boot. Solid, heavy, whatever was inside wasn't shifting. The wind died suddenly, dropping into an unnatural stillness. Even the rain softened for half a breath, as if the storm itself was watching him. Wade's instincts, sharp from decades of ranch life, prickled. But he wasn't a man who backed down from the unknown. If something wanted to hide on his land, he was damn well going to find out what it was. He grabbed the crate by one handle. It barely budged. With a low grunt, he dragged it inside the house, every muscle in his back protesting. The moment the door shut behind him, the storm resumed at full force, slamming wind against the windows like angry fists. He fetched a lantern, set it beside the crate, and retrieved his old crowbar from the storage closet. For a moment, he hovered over the lid, breath held, every nerve alert. The wooden slats were damp, the edges splintered from time rather than weather. "All right," he murmured. "Let's see what card fate's dealin' tonight." He wedged the crowbar under the lid. The nails groaned, resisting. He pushed harder. Wood cracked. Something inside shifted. Softly, but unmistakable. Part 2 expanded approximately 700 words. Inside the crate lay something Wade would never forget for the rest of his life. At first, he thought it was a doll, too still, too small, too delicate to be anything living. But the longer he stared, the clearer the truth became. Whatever lay curled in the crate was wrapped in ancient-looking linen, its thin limbs tucked close to its body. The linen was yellowed, brittle, fraying at the edges as though it had survived centuries instead of years. Strange markings, similar to the ones carved on the crate, covered the strips of cloth, glowing faintly when the lantern light passed over them. Wade's breath caught. The being wasn't human, not exactly. Its limbs were longer than a child's should be, its fingers tapered like fine brushstrokes. And its skin, what little of it peeked out from the wrappings, was pale gold, smooth like polished stone but warm-looking, almost radiant. Then it moved. Just an inch, just a twitch, but that was enough. Wade jerked back, knuckles whitening around the crowbar. His throat tightened, fear punching through him like a fist. Jesus Almighty, the small figure coughed. A small, weak, rasping sound, nothing mechanical, nothing artificial. It was the sound of a living creature struggling for air. All fear dissolved in an instant. Wade was many things, but heartless wasn't one of them. Something about that tiny, fragile sound pierced through every layer of caution he had. As if guided by instinct stronger than fear, he leaned into the crate and gently slid his hands under the creature's body. Shock shivered through him. It weighed almost nothing, lighter than a newborn calf, lighter even than a sack of feathers. He lifted it carefully, cradling it against his chest. The creature's skin radiated a soft warmth, like a stone left in the sun too long. The linen fell away from its face. Wade's breath hitched. It was beautiful in a way he didn't understand. Its features were fine, ethereal, too perfect, too symmetrical. Its eyelids fluttered open, revealing enormous amber eyes that glowed like molten glass. Those eyes met his, unblinking, old and young at the same time. "Hey there," Wade whispered, voice low and trembling. You understand me." The creature didn't speak. Instead, it reached its tiny hand toward Wade's chest. He instinctively leaned back, unsure, but the hand rested gently over his heart. Warmth spread through him, not just physical warmth, something deeper. A pulse of calm, understanding, gratitude, the kind of feeling he hadn't felt since his wife passed years ago. A sensation of being seen, recognized, connected. Then the warmth faded, leaving Wade breathless. He carried the being to the couch and set it down gently. It curled into the cushions, trembling, eyes fluttering with exhaustion. "What are you?" he murmured, more to himself than to the creature. It blinked slowly, then raised one long, slender finger toward the window. Toward the storm. Lightning flashed outside. The windows rattled violently. The creature raised its hand again, weakly, trembling. And suddenly, the storm stopped. The wind died. The thunder ceased. Rain turned into a whisper. Wade staggered back a full step. Holy. He stared at the small being, whose chest rose and fell with shallow, labored breaths. Its hand dropped, and the storm, only outside his property line, remained eerily calm. "You did that?" he asked softly, as if afraid to break something fragile. The creature nodded once. Wade opened his mouth to say something, anything, but the universe didn't give him a chance. A loud, violent pounding shook the front door. Wade froze. The creature flinched, shrinking into the couch cushions. The pounding came again, fiercer, more urgent. He reached for the shotgun hanging above the fireplace. The familiar weight steadied his breathing just a little. "Wade Laramie," a voice bellowed from outside. "Open the door. We know you have it." Wade felt a cold fist close around his spine. "We," he whispered under his breath. "Who the hell is we?" He glanced at the creature. Its golden eyes were wide, terrified. Its limbs had curled inward as though trying to disappear entirely. Someone wanted it, someone powerful enough to know exactly where it was delivered. Wade's heart pounded as he stepped toward the door, holding the shotgun low but ready. "Stay quiet," he whispered over his shoulder. "Whatever you are, whatever trouble you're in, I'm not letting anyone take you." Part 3 expanded approximately 700 words. The door shuttered again, this time with an unnatural force that splintered the wood at the edges. Wade stumbled back, shotgun raised, eyes locked on the doorway. 3 figures in dark, rain-soaked coats stepped over the threshold. Their faces were obscured by hoods, shadows, and the storm's reflections. Their movements were precise, efficient, predatory. They didn't hesitate. They didn't speak, as if all words had been replaced by a single, shared purpose: get what they came for. Wade's mind raced. Guns drawn. He was outnumbered, and the thing in the couch, whatever it was, wasn't strong. Not physically. Not yet. "Step aside, Laramie," the tallest figure said, voice low but edged with authority. He didn't reach for a traditional firearm. Instead, he lifted a sleek black device that hummed, small arcs of energy flickering along its barrel. It looked like it could tear through the wall itself without effort. "The specimen belongs to us." "Specimen," Wade barked, pointing his shotgun squarely at the intruder. "You mean this living creature here?" He gestured to the crate's occupant, now curled tightly into the couch cushions, trembling but watching him. "I don't care what it is, you don't touch it." The intruder paused, tilting his head slightly, as if amused. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." Wade's blood ran cold, his gut told him they weren't lying. Whatever this creature was, it was far beyond anything he'd ever seen. But he wasn't about to back down. Not tonight, not with a life, maybe more than a life, in his hands. The intruders fanned out, two advanced, one covering the sides. Wade fired a warning shot into the ceiling, the crack of gunpowder echoing like thunder in the room. The shots weren't meant to harm but to assert dominance, to buy time. The creature stiffened, its amber eyes glowing brighter. It lifted its tiny hands, trembling. And then, something impossible happened. A wave of heat and light radiated from its body, expanding like the sun in miniature. The intruders yelped, shields up, weapons sparking violently as if the energy coming from the small being was rewriting the laws of physics itself. The air became thick, charged, and alive. Wade stumbled backward, shielding his eyes. His chest burned, not with fear, but with an almost spiritual intensity. The warmth of the creature washed over him, not harming but invigorating, filling him with a clarity he hadn't known in years. Lightning outside responded to the pulse. The storm had returned, but it bent around the ranch, focusing itself outward in a whirl of wind, rain, and electric fire. It was as though the creature commanded not just the air in the room but the very elements themselves. The leader lunged, trying to get close. But the creature's hand shot up again. A cone of golden energy erupted from its palm, knocking the man backward with a force that lifted him off his feet. The two others barely had time to react before they too were caught in the invisible tide, flung violently through the shattered doorway. They hit the mud outside like ragdolls, their equipment smoking and sparking, powerless against the being's will. Wade fell to his knees, heart hammering, coughing from the heavy air. The creature sagged back into his arms, exhausted, but alive. Its amber eyes found his, filled with a mix of gratitude, fear, and trust. You saved me," Wade whispered, barely believing the words could contain the truth of what he felt. The creature blinked slowly, a message carried not in words but in raw emotion, trust, urgency, and the unspoken warning that danger wasn't gone. Not yet. Wade's mind raced. He had questions, thousands of them, but none mattered as much as this. He had to get it somewhere safe. Somewhere beyond reach of whoever, or whatever, was hunting it. The creature stirred, pointing a trembling hand toward the mountains in the distance, where jagged peaks disappeared into the clouds. A place, a direction, a mission. It was demanding, desperate, a plea wrapped in gestures and energy pulses that Wade somehow understood. He nodded. "All right, you're not alone anymore. Not on my watch." Wade grabbed a thick coat, wrapped the small being carefully in it, and stepped into the rain. The storm had receded from the ranch itself, leaving a narrow corridor of calm, almost guiding them. Dusty neighed from the stall as Wade mounted, then lowered his head against the small golden figure for protection. The mountains loomed ahead, dark and unyielding. But for the first time that night, Wade felt a strange confidence. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was responsibility, a mission that neither of them fully understood, but one that could not be ignored. As they rode through the mud and wind, lightning illuminating the path in jagged flashes, Wade glanced down at the creature. It nestled against his chest, its glow dim now, conserving energy. But he could feel the pulse, faint but insistent, as if it was communicating silently, "Follow the path. Trust the path." They moved into the night, two figures silhouetted against the storm-lit horizon, a man who had seen too much and a being who had seen far too little, bound together by fate, circumstance, and something far bigger than either of them could comprehend. The crate had been opened out of curiosity. But the journey that began with a single lid lifted would change everything, not just for Wade Laramie, not just for the creature, but for the world itself. Why?